Well, a hearty shalom to you. Jeffrey Seif here. We're going to take a look at the book of Acts. We're picking up in the 15th chapter. We're climbing into Paul's world and going on the journey with him. As of the reading today, he's finished what's referred to as his first missionary journey. He was out and about with Barnabas, ministering in Jewish communities, and from there reaching Jews and non-Jews. There were a lot of non-Jewish people attracted to the Jewish world, and these Jewish believers and non-Jewish believers became the nucleus of his congregations. Well, Paul has done his circuit and he's gone back to his sending community in Antioch, Syria. Now we're told in 15, now some men coming down from Judea were teaching the brothers, unless you're circumcised according to the customs of Moses, you cannot be saved. Well, two things on the quick there. First of all, you might think a Bible writer needs a geography lesson because Judea is down here, Jerusalem is down here, and Antioch is up there. Why does it say they went down from Jerusalem instead of they went up from Jerusalem to Antioch? Well, in the Hebrew world, Jerusalem is the high place. You go up to Jerusalem and you go down from Jerusalem if you're going somewhere else. The Bible is just breathing the Hebrew idiom that was part and parcel to its environment. Well, we're told here that there was a dispute because some argued that people needed to be circumcised in order to be saved. That is, we're in a situation here where the faith community is dominated principally by women and men of Jewish extract. As a result of Paul's agency, what's working through him is individuals of non-Jewish extract are coming to faith. The net result of which is people reason, well, if they want to join the party, if they want to join the group, they need to become Jews like the rest of us. This underscores, in fact, how Jewish early Christianity really was. Actually, I'm more predisposed to see the what we call the early church as something of a renewal movement within Jewish culture. You know, we're still living in a Jewish matrix here. We haven't differentiated. And I should say as well that if you look at the Bible, those that were part of the covenant were circumcised, and I think individuals of Jewish extract were pleased to make room for Gentile friends, but now they needed to seal the decision with the seal of circumcision. But Paul argued that the cross was sufficient itself. Nothing needed to be added to it, and hence there was a big debate when he says, unless you're circumcised according to Moses, you cannot be saved. We might broaden the word saved and distinguish it from the common usage that we have today. In evangelicalism, people talk about, are you saved or are you unsaved? Those are not unreasonable questions, but saved is construed as well as wholeness. For instance, Jesus in John 10:9 says, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he or she will be saved. Sozo is the Greek word. It means to be healed, made whole, put back together. And I look at the statement here in Acts 15:2 within the context of, well, if these Gentiles want to do it, by golly, they need to, if they really want to be whole and do it right, they need to become like us, that is Jewish. And that was the debate. Paul would have none of it, and the Antioch community realized this was a fermenting dispute, so they appealed, we're told in the text, to Jerusalem. That's where the headquarters was. Paul and Barnabas were kind of outlier leaders. The real magisterium, the nucleus, the authoritative center for this renewal movement was in Judea. Today, Paul's the decisive authority for what it means to be Christian, what it means to walk with the Lord. In his own day and time, he wasn't construed as a decisive authority. Paul and Barnabas are advocating for something. There's a dispute. And so Antioch says, well, you need to take it to Jerusalem, let the elders decide it. And they do. We're told that they get into it there. They kind of hash it out. I'm interested in verse 5. Because I don't want to get to the issues on the table as much as I want to look at who's representing the issue here. And I'm only really interested in 1 through 5 in this brief segment. We're told in 5 that Paul and Barnabas get there, but some belonging to the party of the Pharisees who had believed stood up saying, "It is necessary to circumcise them and to command them to keep the Torah of Moses." Now, it's superfluous in the sense that others were arguing for circumcision. But what I want you to see here is that Luke tells us that it was members of the Pharisees who were believers. I don't think that's unimportant. We observed earlier in Acts chapter 6, we're told there that a great many of the priests became obedient to the faith. And if you look at priests, you're looking at those that come under Sadducean influence. And here you're looking at the Pharisees. What we're seeing here, contrary to popular mythology that all the Jews rejected Jesus, so Jesus rejected all the Jews. According to the history of this early movement, we see it's penetrating up into higher echelons of Jewish culture. And to me, that's not insignificant. When I look at the dispute here on the table, well, do they need to be circumcised? People will use that as an argument. Look at those Jews, they're so legalistic. I say, look at those Jews. That is to say that there's always confusion at the borders of knowledge. Whenever there's something new at play, it takes a while to sort it all out. And what's beautiful here is this testimony to the Jewishness of the Jesus movement. I would imagine that you appreciate that, or you wouldn't be listening to someone like me pontificate, and you wouldn't tune into the Tree of Life Bible Society. I gave away a Tree of Life Bible this weekend. I order them. I got to order some more, in fact, and I'd give them away, because one of the things that this version does, it helps people connect to the Jewish roots from which the Christian church emerged. Barry and I went to a funeral this past weekend, and I'm a Harley enthusiast, and my wife rides a Harley as well, and we're part of a motorcycle club, not Hell's Angels, Heaven's Angels, a lot of believers in it. Police club, in another life, I have a career in law enforcement as well as being a Bible professor. And so I belong to a police club, and we went to the funeral, and it was interesting that when the pastor, when she read from Deuteronomy in chapter 6, but read it, "Hear, O people, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." Hear, O people. Last I checked, it was "Hear, O Israel." And we checked to see, is there any version that does it differently? No, they all kind of sort of read "Hear, O Israel." But certainly, if you look at Christian theology and even the language that's subtle and sometimes not so subtle, it all moves away from Israel, and we want to move it back. And we're really going against the grain, going against the tradition. But, everything I said in this particular episode is true. When you get a snapshot, when you get a view at what the early faith movement was all about, it still's in the Jewish world, and we'd like to bring it back there. And thank you for helping us bring it. Well, I just wanted to shine a flashlight on some of the Jewish elements of this dispute that's brewing in Jerusalem, and we'll unpack it some more when we come back together again next week. God bless.